Good morning, all of you. We are going to discuss the azygous system of veins and thoracic today. So, we will initially start with azygous system of veins. So, this is given in the competency code, like they describe and demonstrate origin, course, relations, tributaries, and terminations of azygous, hemiazygous, and accessory hemiazygous veins. Now, we'll start with the case scenario. An interesting case like which shows like there is a compensatory dilatation of azygous venous system which has developed secondary to superior vena cava obstruction or occlusion. So there is a case which is presenting like a 40-year-old man who was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 8 years ago, now presented with superior vena cava syndrome 3 years after the diagnosis. At the beginning of the disease, the clinical signs were characterized by superficial and deep lymphadenopathies in splenomegaly. Total body CTs showed the presence of extensive cervical, thoracic, and abdominal lymphadenopathy. Maybe this case is helping you to recollect the things what you have studied in superior mediastinal syndrome, where you will see the structures in the superior mediastinum. In case if there are any cancers, they will, if the structures in the superior mediastinum like superior vena cava, then the structures coming from archa aorta, trachea, esophagus, any of these cancers will compress the nearby structures. So such a thing is also happening here. There is a compression in the superior vena cava, which is actually compensated by the dilatation of azygous venous system. We will throw more light as we proceed. Okay, this picture is showing actually the enlarged like azygous system, which we will understand as we proceed. Now, what is azygous system of veins? The veins which are straight in course and which are situated on either side of the vertebral column. That's how they are called as paravertebral. They are not accompanied with corresponding arteries. Now, if you observe this picture, you can see like these are the ribs and the space between the ribs is intercostal space, what we have studied in our initial lectures. So in each intercostal space, when you recollect the knowledge of rib, the lower part of the rib presents the groove, costal groove. And we know like in the costal groove, we have band structures in order, like from superior to inferior, we use the word VAN. V standing for vein, A for artery, and R for nerve. So artery V is intercostal vein. So in between the ribs, whatever you are finding now, these are all intercostal veins. Of course, we also have intercostal arteries and intercostal nerves. Okay, that is the full form of band. So there is a small recollection of what we have studied. See, from this picture, we need to understand this picture thoroughly in order to understand what is azygous system of veins. The meaning of azygous is it is unpaired. It doesn't have any companion. Right side is not mirror image of left. That is the meaning of azygous. Now, we know like in the intercostal spaces, we have the intercostal vein. So when you see the intercostal veins are draining into this straight vein, this is the right side of the image, which is that means most of the intercostal veins are draining into azygous vein. Whereas on the left side, you will see the upper intercostal veins, upper like they actually directly drain into left brachiocephalic vein, whereas the lower intercostal veins they join to form accessory hemiazygous and hemiazygous. Both accessory hemiazygous and also hemiazygous, both these veins will finally drain into azygous vein. Okay, so that is azygous system of veins. Now, actually, we can study everything from this picture only. Let me throw light from this picture. So, basically, this azygous vein, which is seen on the right side, how is it formed? We are finding the subcostal vein, which is generally considered as the 12th intercostal vein. It is joining with right ascending lumbar vein. Okay, so both of them are joining to form azygous vein. Okay, Now, into this azygous vein, if you just like we have the intercostal spaces, okay, correspondingly in each intercostal space we have intercostal veins. So, the 11 intercostal spaces correspondingly we have all these intercostal veins which are draining into this azygous. Okay, so the intercostal veins number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They are directly draining into azygous vein, whereas the intercostal vein number 2, intercostal vein number 3, and intercostal vein number 4, they join among themselves and they form right superior intercostal vein, which is also draining into azygous vein. Now, the first intercostal vein is actually directly draining into this. Okay, that is the brachiocephalic vein, the right brachiocephalic vein. In this picture, this is the right brachiocephalic, this is the left brachiocephalic, and we know the right and left brachiocephalic veins will join to form. They will drain into superior vena cava. That means I am taking you in reverse direction because it is venous drainage, and we know the venous blood moves towards the heart, and we know the superior vena cava is opening into the right atrium. That's the reason we will trace it from down, okay, from below upwards, taking it back to the heart. So this is the venous drainage pattern of intercostal veins of right side, which is actively carried by azygous vein. Now let us come to the left side. So when you come to the left side, again let us start from down. So you are finding the left ascending lumbar vein. Okay. Now further continuation you are finding. So that is the subcostal vein. Both of them, they will join, and you will see it forms the hemiazygous vein. So in this hemiazygous vein, the intercostal veins like ninth, 10th, and 11th, they join, and the venous blood of this hemiazygous vein is again draining into azygous vein. Similarly, the intercostal veins number 5, 6, 7, 8, they are draining into accessory hemiazygous vein. The accessory hemiazygous vein is also draining its blood into azygous. So that means the blood which is coming from hemiazygous and the blood which is coming from accessory hemiazygous, both are draining into azygous. And finally, the azygous venous blood moves to superior vena cava. Now, what about the first four intercostal veins? The first one is the first intercostal vein is actually draining into the left brachiocephalic vein, as you can see here. And second, third, fourth, they join among themselves and they form left superior intercostal vein. And this left superior intercostal vein now drains into left brachiocephalic vein. So that means the venous blood from the left brachiocephalic and right brachiocephalic vein will enter into the superior vena cava. So that is the complete information about azygous venous system, which comprises of azygous vein, accessory hemiazygous vein, and hemiazygous vein. Now let us talk systematically what we have seen. So basically, this azygous system of veins will have valves. They drain the venous blood from the intercostal space, which will be collecting the venous blood from back, thoracic region, and also abdominal wall. So this is a point of actually communication with vena cava system in front of the vertebral venous plexus. Like vena cava system, you are finding in front. This is the inferior vena cava. This is the superior vena cava, and this is our azygous system. So in front we have vena cava system. Behind we have vertebrae. In front of the vertebrae we have vertebral venous plexus. That means this azygous system of veins is lying in between vena cava system and vertebral venous plexus. Now, the terminal veins. Overall, now you see three different colors I have used here. So one is the violet color is indicating azygous vein. This yellow in color we have is hemiazygous, and green in color is accessory azygous vein. So, what is the meaning of azygous? I told you, azygous means unpaired. Whatever I have told you with the help of picture is texted here. So, it is present only, azygous is present on right side in the upper part of the posterior abdominal wall and posterior mediastinum. It connects inferior vena cava with superior vena cava. It typically starts from the posterior aspect of the inferior vena cava at or below the level of renal veins. Of course, because these are veins, origin is always not constant. So lumbar azygos ascends anterior to the upper lumbar vertebrae. Anterior to 12th thoracic vertebra, azygos vein is joined by large vessels formed by right ascending lumbar and subcostal vein. This we have studied with the help of picture. Right ascending lumbar and subcostal only will join to form the azygos. Suppose if lumbar azygos is not there, then you will see common trunk may form from azygos vein itself. Okay, so this is the superior vena cava and this is the inferior vena cava. This is the abdominal part, this is the thoracic part, and this is the posterior mediastinum. So you are finding the ascending lumbar vein and this subcostal vein, both of them are joining to form this azygos vein. So this is our beautiful picture, which is actually want everyone to practice this diagram from your respective textbooks, where you are finding the right ascending lumbar vein is joining with the subcostal vein to form the azygos vein, which finally drains here. Okay, so you are finding. So any picture is fine. So now see here, this is the azygous venous system which is being shown in blue color now. So this is entering. So you can see it has actually thorax. The upper part of the picture is indicating thorax and the lower part of the picture is indicating abdomen. And we know the partition between thorax and abdomen is diaphragm. So the diaphragm will have basically three openings for the passage of structures from thorax to abdomen and abdomen to thorax. Like we need opening for the inferior vena cava to move from the abdomen to the thorax. Esophagus moves and continues from the thorax into the abdomen and stomach, and the continuation of aorta. We know, like from the previous class, that is the descending thoracic aorta will now continue as abdominal aorta. So from this, like if you see, that means the diaphragm has three openings, and through the opening of aorta, you will see we also have this azygous vein which is entering. So it enters the thorax by passing behind the right crest of diaphragm or piercing it, or it may traverse aortic hiatus. That is the opening for aorta. This opening is also carrying the azygous vein. So this whole thing is azygous. This one is azygous. So it is ascending in the posterior mediastinum up to the level of T4, where it is arching forwards up to the right pulmonary hilum. It is ending in the, you can see this is, it is ending in the superior vena cava before it pierces the pericardium. So the relations of this azygous vein, anteriorly the azygous vein is related to esophagus. Posteriorly, from this picture you can see it is related to lower 8 thoracic vertebrae, and anterior to the bodies of the vertebrae we already know, like we have anterior longitudinal ligament, and posteriorly it's also related to posterior intercostal arteries, that van structures. On the right side, this becomes the right side. So on the right side, obviously, we will have right lung and right pleura and this great splanchnic nerves. Now on the left side, we will see this green duct, that is the thoracic duct, then descending thoracic aorta, and also esophagus, the right border of esophagus. Then coming to the tributaries of azygous vein. So the lower 7th right posterior intercostal veins, except the first right superior intercostal vein, formed by the union of second, third, fourth right posterior intercostal veins, end in arch of azygous vein. So not only that, from the picture we have seen into the azygous vein, hemiazygous vein also drains at the level of T8 vertebra. Accessory hemiazygous vein also drains at the level of T7 vertebra. Then trunk formed by the right subcostal vein and right ascending lumbar vein, right bronchial vein, esophageal veins, mediastinal veins, and pericardial veins. All these are the tributaries of azygous vein. So from this picture, you can see this is the last 12th intercostal vein, which is called as subcostal vein, and this is ascending lumbar vein. Both of them have joined to form this azygos. Into this azygos, 5th to 11th are directly draining. Second, third, fourth, they join among themselves and then open into the azygos vein. And the first intercostal vein is directly opening into the right brachiocephalic vein. So that is how we have the azygos vein. So finally, the azygos vein will be draining into superior vena cava. So in case of obstruction of superior vena cava, azygos vein serves as a main collateral channel to shunt the blood from the upper half of the body to inferior vena cava. So that's the reason in our case scenario, we saw the obstruction of superior vena cava. In that case, azygos vein was dilated because it is now shunting the blood from the upper half of the body to inferior vena cava. So after this azygos system, we will now try to talk about hemiazygous vein. It starts, this hemiazygous vein, it starts by the union of left ascending lumbar vein and left well intercostal vein, that is subcostal vein. So finally you will see it is actually also communicating with the left renal vein. It enters the thorax by piercing the left crest of the diaphragm, receives lower 3 or 4, you can see 9 to 10 to 11 to 12. Lower 3 or 4 intercostal veins, and we know the hemiazygous vein is also ending in the azygous vein at the level of T8 vertebra. Yes. Now this is accessory hemiazygous vein. It begins as a continuation of the fourth posterior intercostal vein, receives the blood from fifth, sixth, seventh, and sometimes eighth intercostal vein also. And we know it is also terminating into azygous vein at the seventh thoracic vertebra. Now coming to our case scenario where I told you there was an obstruction in the superior vena cava because of which the blood is being shunted from the upper half of the body to the inferior vena cava. In such case, this is our azygous vein. This is the occlusion of superior vena cava, and you can see this is the enlargement of the azygous venous system because there is occlusion or obstruction in the superior vena cava. So we know we have started with a 40-year-old man with a compensatory dilatation of azygous venous system secondary to superior vena cava occlusion. So this cavography pictures after contrast injection in lateral projection, you are finding this case in the superior vena cava stenosis, that is the narrowing of the lumen of superior vena cava at the level of azygous vein. So we are seeing the abrupt caliber change. Here you can see the obstruction. Basically, when we have seen the picture, superior vena cava is wide, diameter is big, whereas usually we see azygous vein is very much comparatively narrow. But in this case, superior vena cava is obstructed and there is compensatory dilatation of azygous system of veins. So that is dilated azygous vein we are finding because of the obstruction of the superior vena cava. So after this, we are going to discuss about the next topic, that is the thoracic duct. So this is described in the competency page in the CPMB competency based learning. You can see we have to study the describe and demonstrate the extent, relations, tributaries of thoracic duct and enumerate its applied anatomy. Now we will start again with the case scenario where you are seeing the collection of this lymphatic fluid in the thoracic cage, which is actually the thylothorax. So traumatic thylothorax after blunt chest trauma alone is considered is rare. Here the patient is a 27-year-old female who was in motorcycle, met with a motorcycle accident and sustained blunt thoracic and traumatic thoracic aortic injury with T1 to T2 vertebral subluxation. She underwent thoracic endovascular aortic repair from T4 to T9 without any thoracic or spinal surgery. On post-operative day 7, the drainage from her left chest turned into a milky white fluid indicative of chyle leakage. Now let us focus on this case. Now see here, I'm going to come back to this case as we are going to end the topic. So now we know like thoracic duct from our knowledge of lymphatic system of general anatomy. So this beaded green colored structure what you are finding here is thoracic duct. So this is the largest elongated lymphatic vessel which is draining lymph from most of the body into the bloodstream. So lymph in the thoracic duct is milky white in appearance because it contains a product of fat digestion from the intestine. The duct appears beaded. You can see so much beaded it is, beads give the appearance or presence of numerous valves in its wall. Actually, lymph is nothing but the interstitial fluid from the tissues which is not collected by the venous system, which is now being collected by the lymphatic system. And that means the lymph flow is same like the flow of the blood in the venous system, that is against the gravity. And because the lymph has to be pumped against the gravity, and we know it is finally the thoracic duct also will open into venous system. That's the reason we will have so many valves in the lumen so as to prevent the backflow of blood. Sorry, backflow of lymph. When you see this, the area of drainage, so the dark green colored area is the upper half of the head and neck, then upper half of the right half of the thorax and right upper limb. This is completely being drained by lymphatic duct, and the remaining part of the whitish area, whatever we are finding, left half of the head, the neck, and thorax, left upper limb, complete abdomen, lower limb. This is being drained by the thoracic duct. This is a small review of what we have already studied in the lymphatic system of general anatomy. Now, exclusively talking about thoracic duct, both the topics azygous vein and thoracic duct can come as 5 marks questions for your university exam. Now, coming to the length of thoracic duct, it measures 45 centimeters, which is 18 inches. The width of lumen is 5 mm. Coming to its origin, it begins from the upper end of the cisterna chyli. What is the cisterna chyli? You are finding the enlarged lymphatic sac, which is quite enlarged here. This is nothing but cisterna chyli, which is seen at the lower border of T12 vertebra. So, our thoracic duct actually continues as the upper end of the cisterna chyli. So, it is now entering into the thorax through the aortic opening. Even I told you azygous vein was also sharing the aortic opening only in the diaphragm. So it is passing upwards in the posterior mediastinum behind esophagus. So opposite to T5, if you remember I told you sternal angle, certain changes take place at sternal angle. So opposite to T5, it is inclining towards the left and runs upwards in the superior mediastinum along left edge of esophagus. At the root of the neck, it arches laterally opposite the seventh cervical vertebra, opposite to its transverse process. Finally, it turns downwards and terminates in the angle formed by the junction of internal jugular vein and the left subclavian vein. This is the left internal jugular vein and this is the left subclavian vein. At the junction of these two, we can see the thoracic duct has come like behind these structures and it has opened at the junction of the left internal jugular and left subclavian veins. So this is like diaphragm and this is the aortic opening in the diaphragm and we are finding the thoracic duct, which is actually upper continuation of the cisterna chyli, is continuing like this upwards, beaded, and it is running upwards in the superior mediastinum, taking a bend towards the left, and it is opening at the junction of internal jugular vein and subclavian vein. It's very clearly shown here. So this is a textbook picture. You have to start with, you have to show it is highly enlarged sac, that is the cisterna chyli, so much beaded at T5 vertebra, that is the sternal angle. You can see it is bending towards left side, and then it is opening at the junction of left internal jugular and left subclavian vein. Now, what are the relations of this thoracic duct? At the aortic opening, see this is the aortic opening, it is anteriorly related to this round whitish structure which is median arcuate ligament. What is this? We will discuss when we do diaphragm in the abdomen. Posteriorly, it is related to 12 thoracic vertebra, and on the right side, it is related to azygous vein. Left side, it is related to aorta. Right side is bluish vein, that is azygous vein. Left side, you are finding aorta. In the posterior mediastinum, the relations are anteriorly, it is related to posterior sloping surface of diaphragm, esophagus. Posteriorly, thoracic vertebra covered by anterior longitudinal ligament, terminal part of the accessory and hemiazygous vein, right posterior intercostal arteries. Right side, it is related to azygous vein. Left side, this thoracic duct, the bluish one, you see, it's related. Left side, it is related to descending thoracic aorta. Now, this is the superior mediastinum. So anteriorly, so this is our thoracic duct, and anteriorly we can see it is related to arch of aorta, lower part of the left subclavian artery, um, arch of aorta, lower part, and left subclavian artery, upper part. Then posteriorly, it is related to the bodies of upper four thoracic vertebrae. On right side, it is related to esophagus, and left side, it is related to left lung and left pleura. See now, where is the thoracic duct here? This is the thoracic duct. And from the knowledge of head and neck, if you remember, we had carotid sheath. Now let us see what are the structures in it. So this is the thoracic duct, and anteriorly it is related to left carotid sheath. Posteriorly, it is related to left sympathetic trunk, first part of the vertebral artery, branches of the thyrocervical trunk. That is inferior thyroid artery, transverse cervical, and suprascapular vessels. Then left scalenus anterior and left follicular. First part of the left subclavian artery. So these are the relations what we see in the root of the neck. Now, see, this is like this whole thing. First of all, let us try to understand this picture. This whole thing, whatever we are seeing, is the thoracic duct. To start with, begin with, I told you thoracic duct is beginning as an enlarged lymphatic sac, which is cisterna chyli, which is collecting lymph from the intestines. Okay, how is it collecting the lymph from the intestines? Through the intestinal lymphatic trunks and lumbar lymph trunks. They will drain the lymph into cisterna chyli. From the cisterna chyli, you will see the thoracic duct is continuing by passing through the aortic opening of the diaphragm. So tributaries are pair of like descending lymph trunks drains the posterior intercostal lymph nodes of lower six spaces. Pair of ascending lymph trunks which drain lymph from the upper lumbar lymph nodes. Vessels which drain the posterior mediastinal lymph nodes and posterior intercostal nodes of upper six spaces of left side. So then left jugular lymphatic trunk also we have, okay, draining left half of the head and neck, left subclavian lymphatic trunk draining left upper limb, left bronchomediastinal trunk, okay, which will be draining the left half of the thoracic cage. Now what happens in the, now our case is describing something like thylothorax. So injury of the thoracic duct. Thoracic duct, as we have seen, it is a thin wall and maybe colorless structure. It is injured inadvertently during surgical procedures in posterior mediastinum. Laceration during lung surgery. Chyle enters into the pleural cavity, that is chylothorax. Cervical part of the thoracic duct may be damaged during block dissection of neck, so it should be ligated immediately. If ligated, the lymph returns the anastomotic channels, but if the injury is not detected at the time of operation and hence not ligated, if thoracic duct is not ligated, it may cause an unpleasant hilus fistula and leakage of lymph. That's what is actually the chylothorax we are seeing. So the another condition where we are finding the obstruction of the thoracic duct, the filarial infection, the thoracic duct is obstructed by microfilaria larvae. In the name of the parasite there is Buchereria bancrofti. So various conditions related to the obstruction of thoracic duct, chylothorax, chyloperitoneum, chyluria, and even the accumulation of chyle in the tunica vaginalis, that is a covering of testis. So you can see this chylous effusion may result from the leakage of chyle from intact lymph vessels or thoracic duct perforation. So obstruction of the lymphatic flow commonly causes lymphatic hypertension, dilatation of lymphatics and subsequent leakage of lymph, something like this. Chylothorax. So in this case, generally patient was treated conservatively for 2 weeks and then the chest drain was safely removed. The result shows that traumatic chylothorax can be successfully managed with conservative treatment. So this is chylothorax and you can see how it was drained. Lymph from the thoracic. So in summary, blunt traumatic chylothorax can occur in cases of toxotrauma. A definitive diagnosis should be made through lab testing prior to management. Most patients with these conditions are successfully managed with conservative treatment. If there is no improvement after 2 weeks, surgical management should be considered. Thank you.